Hello, 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 my beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of The Auntie Lynette Show, where we showcase some of Toronto's hottest visual and musical artists. I am your host, LWB. Today's podcast is brought to you by a WWB production and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Spreaker.com. Folks, it gives me superb pleasure to introduce you to Toronto-based recording artist Shelley Hamilton. Born in Nova Scotia, Shelley is a singer, actor, host, producer, and writer. African Nova Scotian Music Association's 2019 Artist of the Year, Shelley has worked internationally from Dubai to Japan. Sung on the 2003 Juno Award-winning album ALLEGRO by Robert Michels, and has done everything from a cappella with stand-up comedy to singing the Rolling Stones classic Gimme Shelter beside the legend American soul and gospel singer Mary Clayton herself. Her most recent works as a Black woman in country and folk music have been recognized with a 2019 nomination, Canadian Folk Music Awards, for the album The Afro-Métis Nation, Constitution, and an African Canadian Artist of the Year nomination for the 2020 East Coast Music Awards. Well, folks, if that doesn't just blow you away with impressions and just awe and gagging, I don't know what will. It gives me great pleasure to say hello, Shelley. Thank you for coming on the show. How are you today?
Well, after an introduction like that, I'm feeling pretty damn good.
Touche. I love it. I love it. This is how we roll, right, Shelley? It's all about just uplifting one another. I'm going to dive right in because I need to know a cappella with stand-up comedy. Shelley, talk to me about it. Tell me about this unique niche that you've, exposed us to here. I want to know more.
Well, I always look at things as, well, if no one has done it, well, why not do it? And I'd never seen anything like three Black women doing a cappella harmonies that were in sync and then suddenly break out into comedy. Mm-hmm. And I knew that there was something different and edgy about it. And at the time, I had an a cappella group that had been formed and we lasted for about 12 years called the Delightful Divas. And the Delightful Divas were known for doing a cappella, but changing the script on it and doing things that might never have been done before with a cappella. So I was the arranger for all the pieces. And one of the opportunities that we had doing this work was being in such women-led productions like March of Dames with Lisa Merchant. And so when she heard about my group and heard that we could also do comedy, she actually had us on board one of their seasons. I believe it was her 10th anniversary for the Delightful Divas to actually come on and do comedy with cappella. And I remember some of the pieces that we did, and everybody came back to us afterwards and said, which is one of the best lines that people always say to me, I never thought of looking at music that way or hearing it that way or seeing it that way before. You made me think differently about it.
I love that.
Favorite pieces that we did, it wasn't during that time, but we'd done it for several shows, and it was one of our favorite things that people would always ask for was our Beatles medley.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, because the Beatles medley was taking the classic Beatles songs and changing the arrangements and doing a whole medley of it. But the last part of the medley was comedy. So it blew people away that it would start off as this very serious, perfect little harmonic trio doing these sweet harmonies to the Beatles with a little bit of soul. And then by the end of it, they're laughing their head off because they're like, okay, we did not see that coming.
That's right. And can you recall what one of the best performances of the Beatles medley in your career was so far and why? Do you remember a particular location or a particular crowd that really resonated with the material?
I'd have to say it was a toss-up between two, but for completely different reasons.
Okay.
One was a very big conference in Las Vegas that we were hired to do, which was incredible to be doing this in front of thousands and thousands of people. So that was cool just because it was such an unexpected, fortunate gig that came out of us doing something like that in front of a big union performance in Toronto. And they just came up to me and said, would you do this same show in Vegas? And
Love
I went,
it.
You had me at Vegas. Yes, of course we would. And then the other time that I did this medley was when I came back and produced a show at Lula Lounge after my cancer, when I came back from colon cancer, and decided to challenge myself and get back into doing and performing a whole show. And so my show was literally me coming back and doing all those things that I do, which is comedy, which is music, which is all of those things. So I did a music variety show at Lula Lounge and just had all my friends and that came out. And a lot of them had never seen me do my a cappella group with the stand-up comedy. So that was really like a wonderful time to be able to do it in front of my friends, celebrating my health, celebrating them, and being there at various parts of my journey, and being well enough to be able to do something as crazy as produce a whole show. And I never realized I'm doing something as crazy as that until I start doing it all and going, oh, here I go again, putting the Mad Hatter hat on and doing all these different things. So I look at it afterwards and it's like, okay, there's a jazz duo, and then I've got a radio drama that I have live on the floor, and then an a cappella comedy thing happening. And then it's like, I look at the show afterwards and went, yeah, there you are, just putting your hat on with all these different things, going crazy and feeling the joy of just being back and feeling well and feeling good that I could do that. That was equally just so orgasmic for me, for my heart, and for my friends. It was wonderful.
I love it. And speaking of orgasms, what is it about country music that makes you feel passionate?
Oh, speaking of orgasms.
Yeah, girl.
Segue. Well, I think part of it for me is, I think for a lot of us as we get older, is that there's lots of full circle moments about what inspires us. And I think one of the lines in one of my most recent songs, going forward ain't getting me nowhere. Got to go back to the beginning and sit with myself there.
Oh, I love that.
Because there's such truth when we go back to the simplicity of where our core is.
That's right.
And my core and my truth is growing up in a Black community in Nova Scotia, in country. My father was a country man. He was a farmer, but he was a dog breeder. And that wasn't looked at as a sport or a skill. But now in hindsight, how many Black people would you know in the 1960s that were a full-fledged dog breeder in Canada?
That's right.
Can't think of too many. I know my father probably was the first and only man in the 60s doing this work. And, to look back at it now and look at the depth of my roots, it is looking at the simplicity and the pureness of where I came from and what he gave to me, what my parents instilled in me from those simple roots. And there was a lot of harshness, of course, and, racism growing up in Black communities in Nova Scotia. I grew up in Preston.
That's right.
There's a lot of harshness that goes with that, but there's also equally a lot of extreme strength and beauty that comes out of those roots. And I grew up with that. As much as I grew up with soul and R&B, my father would play Freddie Fender and play Ray Charles and play Charlie Pride and say to me, these are your people. These are our roots. This is who we are. But as a kid, I didn't understand the correlation. I wasn't really sure what he was saying to me. But he knew as a young kid, I really had an affinity for music. Now, hindsight, looking back at it, I'm so grateful that my father was telling me, how can I tell you in so many ways that this is us? Like, he was really saying it was us. But I didn't understand in what way. I thought he meant more like, us as a family. Like, this is our family music. And I was like, no, my music's everything, because I love music. But he was talking about it from a root standpoint and what made him feel. And I just remember him having moments of talking about how this music would make him feel something more than other music did for him. And now, being older, I understand that there's a simplicity of storytelling in roots music like that allowed him to have a freedom of expression. And some of those stories really emoted so much of his story that I didn't realize that that's what he was telling me. And so now, coming back to it, I feel, in all truth, if I go back to where I am and who I am, the best story to tell is my own. And my own is from a country standpoint, a root standpoint, a country soul standpoint. That is how I hear my music, how I hear and feel my experience. And now being able to explore that. And literally, Lynette, there is no shame in my game to be able to say, start from my bottom. I'm literally starting from my bottom all over again, with putting aside the conceived notion of what I was before and actually embracing who I am is what I was, and now embracing those facets musically. And I can tell you, it's been such a rewarding experience to have people come back to me and me thinking that my voice and my words and what I'm doing right now is so simple. And then people are coming back to me and saying, no, we are loving this. We are loving what you're doing right now. It is resonating with me. So I'm really enjoying the whole journey of it right now. And I'm embracing how people are coming to me and wanting to know more about me in this facet. I love even that my friends are saying, this is so great. I'm learning about you in a different way that I've never known you before.
Sure. I love that. No, that's great. And you're tapping into the concept of cross-generational musical influence. So I wonder, having mentioned what music your parents listened to and how they introduced you to the sounds that resonate with who you are as an artist, I wondered if you could discuss a little bit about what you feel and how you feel country has changed over the years, country music in particular. And then as a second part of that question, what you feel about the music that teenagers are listening to today. Because I'm thinking about who you were as a young person. I'm thinking about your return to the beginning, as you spoke about, which is lovely, and the authenticity in that, and also exposing who you are to your audience. But what do you think has changed over the years musically, and thinking about teenagers today and what they're drawn to? How do you keep and maintain your audience?
I think teenagers today and younger people today are really intelligent. I think that they've had a lot to process in a short period of time, especially right now. And I'd have to say, since we've gone through this pandemic, I actually can say I appreciate their brilliance and their intelligence so much that, we have this preconceived notion, perhaps, and not necessarily me, but I think maybe a lot of older adults have this preconceived notion of maybe teenagers and our youth not being that intelligent. But when our eyes are open, whoever we are, we want to learn and understand more about ourselves, and we want to express it more. So I think we have a beautiful new realm of really enlightened, intelligent youth coming forward. A lot of them artistically needing to express their voice and needing to express the voice of others, and to know that what they're saying is important and that they want to also give light to their experience. And that is so valuable that they're coming forth with this beautiful intelligence about what they want to express musically. And I see that in all genres of music. I see it in my own music right now, because a lot of the younger artists that I'm seeing, like Sasha and Dorje and there's so many others here that are coming up from Canada. They are absolutely just giving us so much light about who they are. It's really, really inspiring. And so when I just talk about my own genre, I'm also seeing it in other genres. Like, they're so brilliant. They're so intelligent.
I love that. Thank you for that, Shelley. So I know that you are a foster parent with the Humane Society, and you have two beautiful dogs named Greta and Nugget. So I wonder, just as an artist, how you maintain a work-life balance outside of parenting, and if you have any other hobbies or interests outside of country music that maintain your mental health, and the fact that you're a survivor. Talk about that and how you spread yourself not so thin, as we have a rapidly evolving world that we're in, and there's a lot coming at us. So that's a very important thing that I try to make sure I ask all artists, is how they maintain their equilibrium.
Well, one thing for sure, I feel 100% no guilt about taking time for me.
Beautiful.
As a survivor, my body became different afterwards, and I had to learn to listen to that body. And when it needed rest, it needed to rest. And when I have energy to do things, I can do things very well. But I learned to respect the gift that is my life and what I've been given with it. So I've always tried to create a work-life balance, especially because every time I tried to go forward and do things the way I used to, my body would halt me, and I'd end up having to spend time getting well again and getting that body back in working order. So I've always tried to do things that put me in moments of focus and reflection. So simple things, just like always being in positions of mindful breathing or taking moments to meditate, are always really important. And people can do those within minutes just by doing circular or square breathing exercises. You can always take moments to do that and be present with yourself. I think having animals and being a volunteer with the Humane Society for over 20 odd years has really helped, because coming back to animals and coming back to